The snow fell in slow spirals, silent as ash. Helicopter rotors chopped the air, drowning out the desolate quiet of the dead zone. As the aircraft descended, 30 survivors inside braced themselves for what lay below. Each one bore different scars, some physical, others buried deep. They had signed on willingly, though none could say why. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was desperation. Outpost Thorn was nothing more than a dot on the edge of the Arctic shelf, nestled in a mountain basin once used for deep-sea listening operations during the Cold War. Now it was the last operational safe zone in the Northern Hemisphere, at least according to the last global transmission. A woman near the back of the helicopter kept her eyes shut. Her name was Mara Kell. Former rescue diver. Her hands gripped the strap of her gear bag, knuckles pale. She wasn't here to survive. She was here to find her brother, the only family she had left. He had gone dark 8 months ago in this very zone. As the helicopter touched down on the snowy landing pad, a low alarm buzzed from the pilot's dashboard. Movement on the west ridge, the co-pilot warned. Could be wind, the pilot muttered. But no one truly believed that. The group disembarked quickly, boots crunching ice. An officer stood by the pad waving them in. He wore an Arctic parka with the faded logo of the Global Survivor Coalition. His voice cut through the wind, "Welcome to Outpost Thorn. You'll get no second chances out here. Stay together, follow instructions, and don't wander past the perimeter without clearance." Inside the outpost, warmth blasted from aging generators. The main compound consisted of 3 conjoined shelters, dormitory, command, and the watchtower. The survivors were divided into small groups and assigned bunk spaces. Beds were metal frames lined with thermal blankets and military surplus sleeping bags. Not much, but better than tents and cold pavement. Mara found herself grouped with 5 others, a grizzled ex-soldier named Brock, a nurse named Elsie, a young coder named Jay, a radio technician called Rana, and a man who said nothing, just stared at the wall like it might suddenly open a door to somewhere else. Later that night, they gathered in the central mess hall, lit with backup floodlights and surrounded by steel walls lined with maps and warning signs. One map caught everyone's eye, a detailed layout of the surrounding terrain, color-coded with 3 rings. The innermost ring was labeled Safe Movement Zone. Beyond that, red lines arced in strange shapes, each marked with skull symbols. The words beneath read, "No signal. No surveillance. No rescue." Brock squinted. "What exactly lives out there?" Rana replied without looking up from her thermos, "Nothing lives. That's the point." The station commander, a hard-eyed woman named Sergeant Calver, entered. Her presence silenced the room. "You're here because you were chosen. You've shown signs of resistance. You've made it farther than most. But this zone doesn't play fair. You'll be tested. You'll face what the rest of the world has tried to forget." Jay raised a timid hand. "I thought the infected couldn't survive this far north. Too cold, right?" Calver stared him down. "That was true once. Something changed." She walked to the whiteboard and pulled back a sliding panel, revealing a frozen image from a satellite scan. Blurry, but visible, multiple heat signatures moving, fast. "Information. Infected shouldn't move in packs," Mara whispered. Calver nodded. "They didn't. Until now." A sharp knock came from the watchtower hallway. A scout, soaked in melting snow, stumbled in. "We saw it again. The figure. Same location as yesterday. Just inside the second ring." Everyone turned. Calver clenched her jaw. "Full lockdown. Starting now." That night, Mara couldn't sleep. The wind howled against the bunker walls, and the silence in between was worse. She clutched her brother's old radio unit. Static was all she got. She closed her eyes, listening harder, willing it to break. Then came a whisper. Faint. But real. Mara. She sat up fast, breath frozen in her throat. Mara, I'm still here. The voice crackled away, swallowed by static. Her pulse thudded. Outside, on the perimeter camera feed, the motion sensors flickered. Something was moving along the fence, but it wasn't the infected. It stood still. Watching. Not wandering. Not alone. Mara's eyes narrowed. If her brother was still alive, something, or someone, was helping him survive in the most isolated zone on Earth. And if that was true, the outpost wasn't just a safe haven. It was bait. Mara sat frozen in her bunk, the faint voice still echoing in her mind. I'm still here, it had come through her brother's radio, the same one he used during reconnaissance missions before his disappearance. She pressed her ear to the speaker again, tuning carefully. Just static. She waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing. The message, if real, had been fleeting. But it wasn't imagination. She'd heard her name. The cadence, the breath, it was Daniel. She would have known it anywhere. At breakfast, Mara picked at powdered eggs while the others talked quietly. Brock stirred coffee like he was ready to throw the cup at the next person who spoke. Rana flipped through her makeshift logbook, updating timestamps from last night's motion sensor flares. You okay? Elsie asked Mara, watching her out of the corner of her eye. Mara nodded but said nothing. Jay was mumbling to himself, typing something on his ancient tablet. He paused and turned toward Mara. I heard something too. Not a voice, just a pattern. Right before lights flickered. What kind of pattern? She asked. Jay shrugged. Not random. Looked like code. But the frequency wasn't one I've seen before. Mara looked at Rana. Can your station access private frequencies? Depends, Rana replied cautiously. You think someone's transmitting inside the second ring? I know someone is. Before she could explain, Sergeant Calver's voice crackled over the intercom. All units report to Central Ops. Scout teams prepare for recon. Level 2 breach confirmed at Ridge Sector 9. Every head lifted. Ridge Sector 9 was in the red zone. No signal territory. Mara felt her pulse surge. That was where her brother's last ping had come from, 8 months ago. In Central Ops, Calver stood over a console displaying a heat map with a series of blinking orange dots. This is from 2 hours ago, she said, pointing to the flickering shapes. We estimate 6 entities, faster than standard infected. Unpredictable movement. We need confirmation. Team A will survey from the ridge. Team B monitors ground level. No direct engagement. Brock, Mara, and Rana were assigned to Team A. Jay and Elsie would stay behind and scan for signal anomalies. As they suited up in thermal armor, Mara leaned into Rana. If I can triangulate the signal from my brother's radio, can you amplify it? Rana hesitated. We're not supposed to touch off-channel equipment. Then don't touch it. Just help me listen. Minutes later, Team A departed on snowmobiles, the engines growling low as they cut through blinding white. The ridge was a brutal slope covered in ice boulders and jagged drops, barely visible through the rising storm. Brock stopped just below the ridge's edge, raising his binoculars. Movement, he muttered. 2 figures. Walking. Just walking? Rana asked. Yeah. Not shambling. Not charging. Just, walking. Mara squinted through her scope. The storm distorted distance, but she could make out 2 human shapes, tall, slow-paced, weaving through the frozen trees like they knew the path. One of them limped slightly. Rana turned to her equipment, flipping open a directional scanner. Picking up low-frequency pulse. It's cycling in 3s. Weird, this might be manual transmission, not environmental interference. Mara froze. That's his pattern. Daniel used triple-cycle pulses to bypass automated scramblers. Rana's brow furrowed. Then we're not alone out here. Brock raised his rifle slowly. If those two are smart enough to mimic movement patterns and send fake signals. No, Mara interrupted, that's him. I'm sure of it. The radio on Brock's hip crackled. Team A, return to outpost immediately. Perimeter alarm tripped again. Unknown breach on West Corridor. Priority lockdown initiated. We'll be back in 10, Brock responded. He glanced at Mara. Hope you're right. Back at the outpost, the mess hall had turned into a command center. Jay pointed at a monitor looping distorted security footage. The west gate had opened for less than 2 seconds. No one had entered. No one had left. But motion sensors said otherwise. Calver slammed her fist on the table. We sealed that gate last night. How did it open? Jay didn't answer, but Elsie whispered, what if it wasn't someone opening the gate? What if something on the inside opened it? Everyone fell quiet. Rana pulled Mara aside. The signal's still active. Faint, but repeating. If we can build a directional antenna, we might pinpoint the source. Maybe even contact them. Mara's voice was low, determined. Then let's build it. Tonight. As the outpost's alarms quieted, and guards resumed their patrols, a single blinking red light activated on a console deep beneath the base, in a part of the station no one had entered in years. A small, rusted terminal flickered to life. On it, a file opened by itself. Command, status reboot. Processing. Infected class Sigma confirmed. Phase 1 complete. Unaware, the survivors above continued their plans. They thought they were hunting shadows. But something had already awakened. The wind screamed against the outpost walls as if the dead zone itself resented their presence. While the rest of the survivors tried to sleep, Mara, Rana, and Jay worked silently in a converted supply closet, now their makeshift signal lab. They'd repurposed metal tubing, antenna parts from a grounded drone, and 3 scavenged comm receivers. Jay tightened a screw on the transmitter dish. We only get one chance. If command catches us transmitting on an unauthorized frequency, we're done. Mara glanced around, eyes hard. If Daniel's out there, I'm not waiting for permission to save him. Rana nodded, checking the readings. Signal strength rising. Directional feed narrowing. Locking on. A faint green pulse blinked to life on the screen. There. Triangulated to a spot less than 2 clicks outside the second ring. Jay frowned. That's close to the ice caverns. No one goes near those, Rana whispered. The ice caverns were part of an old mining operation, abandoned before the outbreak. Early scans had shown unstable structures and unusual heat patterns, but nothing confirmed. Still, rumors floated through the outpost like smoke. Disappearances. Static that made people nauseous. Dreams that didn't feel like dreams. Mara didn't care. That's where we go next. The next morning, Sergeant Calver's mood was tense. Another sensor breach. This time from inside the east hangar, sealed off since before their arrival. Looks like sabotage, she told the gathered survivors. No sign of forced entry. No footprints. Just a door opened, and closed. Brock raised an eyebrow. Are you saying someone's working with the infected? I'm saying someone's not who they claim to be. Murmurs rippled across the room. Accusations lived in the silence between glances. That night, while most of the station remained under curfew, Mara's group slipped out through the backup exhaust tunnel. The wind was cruel, biting into exposed skin even through thermal suits. The trek to the ice caverns took just under an hour. No moonlight. Only headlamps and the sickly glow of old mining beacons buried in snowdrifts. Jay's signal scanner beeped faster as they approached the first cave mouth. It's strongest here. Rana studied the rock. This area used to be geothermal. If someone's hiding, it'd be warm enough to survive down there. For a while. They entered. The cavern swallowed them whole. Light reflected off crystal walls like teeth. Frozen mining carts lay scattered along the tunnel floor. Old warning signs had faded to ghosts. Stay close, Mara whispered. They moved deeper, the beeping intensifying. Then, it stopped. Jay looked at the scanner. Dead. No, Mara said. Not dead. Interrupted. A distant clang echoed down the tunnel. Followed by another. Then nothing. Rana held her breath. Was that? The ice beneath their feet shifted. Cracked. Mara's light flickered across something up ahead. A figure. Standing still. Facing away. Dressed in heavy winter gear, frost covering the hood. Her heart caught. Daniel? She stepped forward. Daniel. The figure didn't move. Daniel, it's me. Still nothing. Rana grabbed Mara's arm. Wait. The figure twitched. Then it turned. The hood fell back. Not Daniel. It looked human, almost. Skin pale, but not frozen. Eyes glassy, glowing faintly. Its mouth twitched, as though trying to mimic a smile it had forgotten how to wear. A thick collar circled its neck, pulsing with blue light. Jay whispered, That's not infected. It's something else. The figure raised its hand and pointed, behind them. They turned. From the shadows, more emerged. Silent. Upright. Coordinated. Mara's voice trembled. They're organized. No, Rana said. They're controlled. Jay backed up slowly. Time to go. Right now. The first figure took a step forward. Not running. Not lunging. Studying them. Mara took one last look. If Daniel was down here, he was either one of them, or not far from becoming one. They ran. The ice cracked again beneath Jay's feet, and he fell with a sharp cry. The others hauled him up just in time. Behind them, the figures didn't follow. Just watched. Back at the outpost, Calver was waiting for them. Her face said everything. You disobeyed a direct order, she snapped. Mara was too shaken to care. There's something in those caverns. Not infected. Not human either. Jay held up the scanner. They're using technology. The collar on the one we saw, synthetic signal bursts. Controlled behavior. Someone, or something is managing them. Calver's jaw tightened. We've suspected it. Until now, we had no proof. Mara stepped forward. Then what are we going to do about it? Calver stared at them. Then she opened the secure locker and removed an old map. She pointed to a red X inside the second ring. Tomorrow, we go here. If what you saw is real, then we're sitting on top of something buried. Something built long before the outbreak began. Mara's pulse pounded in her ears. The signal, the voice, the watchers in the ice, it was all connected. Whatever waited beneath them wasn't a myth. It was awake. And watching. Snow drifted like falling ash across the plateau as the team departed at first light. Sergeant Calver led the small expedition, her rifle strapped tightly across her back. Behind her trudged Mara, Brock, Rana, and Jay. They wore double-layered suits, oxygen boosters, and helmet radios tuned to a closed channel. Visibility was low. Tension was higher. The red X on Calver's map was deep inside the second ring, near the old comms grid. A site scrubbed from all official records. It wasn't on the base network, wasn't part of any previous recon mission. Jay, whose access to encrypted maps had cracked long-forgotten logs, had found the coordinates buried in a folder labeled Thorn Beta, a name no one had heard before. This place wasn't part of the original outpost, Calver explained as they moved through waist-deep snow. It predates the Survivor program. It wasn't built to keep people in. It was built to keep something out. They marched in silence for an hour. The mountains loomed to the west, jagged and black. Around them, the cold was complete. There were no animal tracks. No bird calls. Not even wind. Just the sound of their breathing. Finally, they found it. A dark slope in the snow led to a concrete bunker embedded in a hill. Half buried. No lights. No markings. The entrance was a vertical door with a keypad, its screen cracked and dark. Jay ran gloved fingers over the panel. I can bypass it, but I need 5 minutes. You've got 2, Calver said. Jay got to work while the others spread out. Mara's hand hovered near her sidearm. The air felt wrong here, like something once alive still lingered below. Like an echo that refused to fade. With a hiss, the panel unlocked. The door creaked open, releasing stale, metallic air. They entered. Flashlights illuminated a narrow stairwell descending into blackness. The walls were covered in frost, and strange symbols, scratches, maybe, lined the steel as if something had been clawing to get out. Or in. They reached the bottom. A wide corridor stretched forward, leading to a circular chamber sealed by a thick metal door. Old research facility, Calver murmured. Global Coalition pre-outbreak architecture. This place is over 20 years old. Rana wiped frost from a wall plaque. It read. Subthorn Research Site 09. Authorized personnel only. Biological Containment Level 5. Brock muttered, never a good sign when the word containment is part of the welcome. Jay pried open the panel by the heavy door and hotwired it. The locks disengaged with a heavy clunk, and the door slowly opened. Inside was darkness, and then light. The circular room lit up automatically as they stepped in. Fluorescent panels flickered on, revealing consoles, medical pods, and rows of display monitors that hadn't powered on in years. In the center of the room sat a tall glass tube, cracked and empty. Jay moved to the nearest terminal. It still got power. Give me a second. As he typed, video logs began to play across the monitors. Faces appeared. Scientists. Soldiers. And patients, some screaming, some eerily calm. The logs were fragmented, but one thing was clear, they had been experimenting on the infected. Here, Jay said. He brought up a recovered file. Project Sigma, status, active. Initiated, 4.2 years before global outbreak. Objective, neural behavioral modification of stage 3 infected. Result, partial success. Subject retains motor skills and limited cognitive awareness under synthetic influence. Collective consciousness response observed. Brock swore under his breath. They weren't just studying the infected. They were trying to control them. Calver's face was stone. And someone succeeded. Rana stepped toward the shattered glass pod. Whatever was in there, got out. Mara looked around, eyes narrowing. No. It didn't get out. It was released. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. The room's temperature dropped several degrees in seconds. A low hum filled the air, growing louder. Jay's terminal blinked. New signal detected, proximity scan activating. On screen, heat signatures flared, inside the facility. They're here, Jay whispered. They followed us. Brock slammed the door control, locking it. How? We saw nothing outside. The screen showed motion. 5 figures, approaching fast through the upper corridors. The same ones they'd seen in the ice. Back door, Calver snapped. Find it. Now. Mara and Rana scanned the walls. A ventilation access panel popped open. Just big enough to crawl through. Go. Calver ordered. One by one, they slipped inside, dragging packs and equipment with them. Brock brought up the rear, sealing the hatch behind him just as pounding echoed from the other side. They crawled through narrow tunnels for what felt like hours before finally emerging behind a snow-covered outcropping on the ridge. The sun was setting. The facility behind them fell silent once again, buried beneath ice, secrets, and something still very much alive. Mara turned to Calver. What now? Calver didn't hesitate. Now we warn the others. And we prepare. Because what they'd seen wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The warning sirens screamed before the survivors even made it back to the main gate. Outpost Thorn stood like a battered fortress under twilight. Searchlights swept across the snow as guards scrambled into position. The outer wall, normally quiet, was alive with movement. Figures. Dozens of them. They weren't charging or moaning. They were waiting. Mara stood atop the rise, her breath ragged from the climb. That's not a horde, she whispered. That's a formation. Brock raised his scope. They're aligned. Evenly spaced. Watching the towers. Who taught them this? No one, Calver answered. They learned. Back inside the outpost, panic was simmering. Survivors gathered in the mess hall, murmuring rumors. A few had already packed bags, ready to flee. The patrol commander, Lieutenant Hasker, slammed his fist on a table. We can't hold off something that thinks. This isn't what we trained for. Calver stood beside the war table, arms folded. This isn't about training. This is about understanding what we're facing. We found proof, below the ridge. A facility, older than this outpost. They were experimenting with infected cognition. Neural manipulation. She pointed at the grainy footage Jay had stabilized, an infected figure moving with coordination, staring into a camera as if it knew it was being watched. We call them infected. But what we saw? That's a different class entirely. Controlled. Coordinated. Something's giving them commands. Then what's controlling them? Elsie asked, her voice soft. Jay glanced at Mara. Not what? Who? He pulled up the file labeled Sigma Link and ran the corrupted voice message Mara had first heard through a filter. The voice repeated. Mara, still here, find the light. The room fell silent. That's not a hallucination, Jay said. That's an embedded voice loop. It was designed to trigger emotion, recognition. Someone, or something, knows how to reach us directly. Mara stood stiff. That's my brother's voice. But it's being used like bait. Exactly, Rana added. Whatever's out there, it's not just surviving. It's hunting. Learning. Manipulating us. Suddenly, a klaxon blared. Intrusion alert, West Tunnel. Hasker rushed to the feed room. The others followed. Camera 6 flickered to life, showing the snow-packed access tunnel, sealed since the first infection spread across the Arctic border. It should have been buried. But the door was open. Inside stood a single figure, arms at its sides. Still. A woman. She wore a coalition jacket. Blood-stained. Torn. But her stance was steady, alert. Her eyes, clear. The room went cold. That's, Rana began. Dr. Layla Hammond, Calver finished. She disappeared during the Sigma project shutdown. We thought she was dead. The woman stepped forward in the feed. Then she spoke. Not through the camera, but through every intercom in the outpost. If you're hearing this, you've triggered the failsafe. You've found what you were never meant to find. They were not infected. They were never infected. We engineered them to resist infection. To evolve past it. To become something new. Mara stared at the monitor. She's not broadcasting live. But something went wrong. The system learned too fast. It connected too well. Now, it sees everything. And it wants more. The screen glitched. Static. Then black. No one spoke for a long moment. Jay broke the silence. That was a dead loop. It autoplays if the buried facility's accessed. Brock stepped back, arms crossed. You're telling me we've been living above some kind of military Frankenstein project, and it's been watching us since the day we landed? No, Mara said. It's been waiting. Calver turned to the defense crew. Seal the west tunnel. Now. Hasker snapped out of his daze and relayed the order. Men moved. Walls were reinforced. Gun placements doubled. That night, the outpost held its breath. Spotlights scanned the ice. Every 50 yards, a figure stood, silent. Not moving. Like statues frozen mid-march. And then, at 2:11 a.m., one of them moved. Not toward the gate. Toward the camera. It stared straight into the lens. Its mouth twitched. Its lips parted. It whispered, "Still here." The feed cut. Mara stood in the ops room, hands clenched at her sides. Rana looked up from the signal board. The voice pattern, it's mimicking your brother more precisely now. The inflection is sharper. It's learning your reactions. Mara didn't look away from the screen. Then it wants me to come to it. Why you? Jay asked. Calver answered for her. Because Mara's brother was part of Sigma Phase 2. And if that thing is using his voice, it may be using his mind. Mara finished. Outside, the figures began to shift, turning slowly in unison toward the ridge, the direction of the buried facility. They weren't here to overrun. They were waiting for something else. Something coming from below. Dawn never truly broke in the dead zone, only a cold blue haze that crept across the sky like a bruise. Inside Outpost Thorn, no one slept. Lights stayed on. Weapons were cleaned and rechecked. The outpost's walls were lined with watchers, survivors who now understood they were no longer facing a plague. They were standing at the edge of something far older. And far smarter. Mara sat alone in the lower comms room, her brother's radio in her lap. The message hadn't repeated again. But the silence felt deliberate, like it was waiting for her to speak first. She glanced up as Calver entered, a thick file under her arm. You need to see this. The folder was stamped Project Sigma, Phase 2, Echo Variant. Most of the pages were redacted, but the few that remained described a breakthrough. Neural bridging. A test subject who had survived full infection exposure without converting, and not because of immunity. Because something had taken over. Your brother, Calver said, was their most successful trial. They called it a stable interface. The infected organism didn't destroy him. It merged with him. Mara's voice was low. And now it's using him to speak. Calver nodded. The voice you're hearing isn't him. It's what's left of what watched him. It remembers how he sounded. What he cared about. You. Mara swallowed hard. Then it's bait. Maybe, Calver replied. Or maybe it wants you to understand it. Upstairs, Jay and Rana monitored motion trackers and signal strength. A low-pitched hum had started vibrating through the radio towers at irregular intervals. Not interference, communication. "I'm seeing patterns again," Jay muttered, scrolling through the data. Short bursts. Then silence. Then something like, a question. Rana leaned in. "A question?" Jay showed her. In binary, the signal repeated the same characters. "Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?" Rana whispered, "It's looking for someone. Or something." Before they could respond, the motion detectors flared red. 6 moving objects, breaching North Ridge, inside perimeter. Calver was already in the control room. Teams 1 and 2 to perimeter now. No lights. No sound. Watch and wait. The surveillance cameras came online. The shapes were there, half in shadow, gliding across the snow, barely disturbing it. One crouched at the north gate and placed its palm against the steel. It didn't push. Didn't claw. Instead, it listened. The camera flickered. And then... "Mara." The voice played through the feed again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from everywhere. The intercom. The camera audio. Even the old abandoned terminals blinked to life, displaying one word in perfect sync. "Understand." Mara stood. Her skin prickled. The power surged. Then, failure. Lights cut out. Emergency backups kicked in, painting the rooms in red. Down in the engineering level, Jay shouted through comms, "Backup lines just spiked. Something triggered a reboot." "What kind of reboot?" Calver snapped. Jay's voice cracked. "Not ours. Theirs. The underground facility, it's powering up." Mara didn't wait for orders. She was already moving, grabbing her gear. Brock intercepted her at the armory. "You're going back out there alone?" he asked. "If I don't go, it's going to keep coming," she said. "This thing wants something. It's not just mimicking my brother. It needs him." Brock sighed, slinging a rifle over his shoulder. "Then I guess I'm coming with you." Rana joined a second later, followed by Jay. "We're not letting you go into the dark with only a name and a ghost." Together, the 4 slipped through the side vent again, under cover of blackout. No alarms. No lights. Just silence. The trek to the facility was worse the second time. Snow had shifted, like something heavy had moved through it. Shapes lined the horizon, watchers. None advanced. None attacked. They only observed. When they reached the entrance, the bunker door was already open. Inside, the lights glowed faint blue. Screens that hadn't flickered in decades now showed pulsing lines of code. The temperature was warmer, unnaturally so. In the main chamber, the central pod, the one that had been cracked and empty, was whole again. But it wasn't glass. It was ice. And inside floated a body. Human in shape. But wrong. Its skin was pale blue, threaded with black veins. Its eyes were shut. And its face. Mara's knees weakened. It was Daniel. Rana gasped. "That's not possible." "It's him," Mara whispered. The lights dimmed. The intercom came on. And the voice that had haunted them returned, gentle, familiar. "Mara, you found me." She stepped forward, tears burning. "I'm here. But I'm not alone. It sees you too. It wants to show you." Jay grabbed her arm. "Don't listen." But the room faded. The consoles melted into black. And then Mara saw, not with her eyes, but her mind. A memory. Daniel, lying in a medical pod. Screaming. Then calm. Then, understanding. Not possession. Connection. He hadn't been consumed by the infected mind. He had become its bridge. And now? It wanted her to take the next step. Mara stood frozen before the ice-encased pod. Daniel's body floated inside, eyes shut, face eerily peaceful. But the voice echoing through the room wasn't entirely his. It was layered, deepened by something not human. Something ancient. You see now, it said. Not all infection destroys. Some adapts. The pod pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of Mara's heart. Jay backed toward the door, his voice shaking. This is wrong. We need to get out. Now. No, Mara said. It's showing me something. Brock raised his rifle, eyes darting around the room. Whatever it's showing, it's not doing it for free. The pod flickered, and then the walls of the chamber seemed to dissolve. Not literally, but in their minds. The four of them stood in darkness. Then flickers of memory sparked to life. Not their memories. The infections. It began with fire, cities burning, people screaming. But not from this time. From long before. Villages lit by torchlight, corpses reanimating. Panicked eyes. Horses. Swords. A world before electricity. You called it a virus, the voice whispered. But it was never illness. It was information. Scenes changed. Scientists in hazmat suits. Needles. A facility identical to the one they were in now, but new, clean. Files stamped with Sigma. Men in military uniforms pointing at screens showing neural pathways. You tried to bend it. To contain it. But it learned, by remembering you. The visions shifted again. A young man in a lab, Daniel. Hooked to machines, fighting the infection, screaming. Then, slowly, not fighting. Speaking to it. Mara trembled. He didn't become one of them, he became part of it. Jay's voice cracked. It's a collective mind. Hive-like, but more than that. Every time someone turned, it kept a piece of them. And Daniel gave it a doorway. The dark fell away. They were back in the chamber. The ice pulsed again. I chose him because he chose not to fear. He saw what you refused to. Brock stepped forward, defiant. What do you want from us? To survive. But not as you are. Silence followed. Then the power surged. In the control room, Rana's voice came over comms. Guys? The readings here just spiked again, multiple biosigns around you. Moving fast. Jay looked at the scanner. We're surrounded. Mara's voice was calm, focused. Let them come. Everyone turned to her. I think I understand now, she continued. It doesn't want to destroy the outpost. It wants to connect it. It's trying to evolve, and we're standing in its way. Calver's voice snapped over the channel. Mara, do not engage. Pull back immediately. But Mara walked up to the pod, placed her hand on the ice. Daniel, she said softly, if you're still in there, I need you to prove it. For a moment, nothing. Then, his eyes opened. Blue light glowed behind them. Not wild. Not empty. But aware. Mara, he whispered, his real voice this time. She smiled through the tears. But then. The pod cracked. A thin fracture across the ice. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Jay shouted, something's wrong, pressure's building. Brock grabbed Mara's arm. We have to go. The pod cracked again, deeper this time. Fluid gushed out across the floor, glowing blue. Consoles shorted. Lights exploded overhead. The chamber shook. From the hallway, footsteps. More than one. Dozens. Calver's voice came back, tense, extraction team inbound. Hold position for 2 minutes. That's all we can give you. The 4 survivors ran, the entire room behind them collapsing into white light. Down the corridor, the watchers approached, but didn't attack. They stopped. Silent. Waiting. Jay stared at them. Why aren't they moving? Mara's voice was distant. Because they're not soldiers. They're messengers. Back at the surface, the team burst from the tunnel entrance just as the ridge behind them collapsed. Steam billowed into the air as something massive cracked through the earth, an antenna-like structure, bone-white and humming, slowly rising from beneath the ice. Everyone at the outpost watched in silence. The earth itself seemed to breathe. At the base, the figures gathered, dozens of them. All former humans. Standing in rows around the base of the rising spire. Rana whispered, "That's not a weapon." Calver, stunned, replied, "It's a signal." Jay checked the feed on his wrist console. A new word scrolled across the screen in every language, over and over. Awaken. Part 8 coming next, the signal that ends the world or saves it. Shall I complete the finale with Part 8? The spire pulsed like a heartbeat against the frozen sky. It rose higher by the minute, unfurling strange metallic petals, each emitting soft blue light, humming in harmony. Around its base, the infected stood motionless, arranged in a precise circle. Not one groaned, not one advanced. They simply waited. Atop Outpost Thorn's watchtower, Sergeant Calver watched through binoculars, face pale beneath her frostbitten skin. "This isn't an attack," she muttered. "This is a broadcast." Jay confirmed from the comms deck. The signal spreading, low-band frequencies, not radio. It's neurological. If this thing finishes transmitting, it won't just affect the infected. It could hit us too. Inside the outpost, panic simmered beneath the surface. Survivors clutched weapons and whispered fears. Some demanded evacuation. Others demanded someone shut that spire down. Mara stood in the middle of it all, Daniel's old radio clutched in her hand. But she wasn't afraid. She'd seen what the spire was built to do. Bridge the divide. She gathered the core team, Jay, Rana, Brock, Calver, and laid out the only plan they had left. "We can't destroy it," Mara said. "We'd be fighting a system built to survive extinction. And we don't even understand what kind of chain reaction that might trigger." "Then what?" Brock growled. "We join it?" "No," she replied. "We connect with it, on our terms." Rana looked skeptical. "You're talking about mind-to-mind communication. We barely survived our last encounter." Jay nodded toward the shattered facility logs. "But we also learned the system listens." Calver hesitated. Then nodded. "If there's even a chance to control this, redirect it, we try." "What do you need?" Mara held up Daniel's radio. "This. And a direct line to the signal's core. I'm going in." As snow fell heavier, a team of 5 descended toward the spire. The infected didn't move as they passed. It was as if they recognized them, as if Mara's presence had become a key. At the base, the humming grew louder. The spire emitted waves that vibrated through the chest. Jay calibrated a device to stabilize neural flow, part signal suppressor, part translator. A gamble built on theories and broken science. "You sure about this?" Brock asked, scanning the surrounding watchers. Mara nodded. "I have to try." She stepped up to the spire. The metal was warm to the touch. Familiar. And then. Contact. The moment her fingers touched the spire's surface, the world blinked. She stood in darkness again. But not alone. Around her, flickers of memory shimmered, voices of people long gone. Survivors. Doctors. Children. Infected. Then, Daniel's voice. Mara. You made it. She turned, and there he was. Whole. Smiling. A memory made real by the neural bridge. I don't have long, he said. This system, it's trying to decide. Fight or evolve. If we teach it fear, it will destroy everything. But if we show it trust. He reached toward her. Let me help guide it. With you. Mara hesitated. What happens to me? You'll stay yourself. But you'll understand it. And it will understand us. Maybe for the first time. She took his hand. Outside, the spire stopped rising. The humming shifted into a tone, like music echoing across the wind. The infected slowly dropped to their knees, heads bowed, not in defeat, but reverence. Inside the outpost, systems came back online. The radar blinked. Jay's voice cracked over the radio. We're receiving something. A return signal. It's coordinates. Calver leaned over the screen. Multiple relay points. All across the globe. Old survivor shelters. Bunkers. Ones we thought lost. The screen flashed a final message. Reconnecting humanity. Signal link established. Awake. Jay turned to the others. It's reaching out. Not to control. To unite. The infected, what were once humanity's destroyers, had become messengers. Carriers of memory. Not weapons. Not monsters. Messengers of warning. And hope. Mara opened her eyes at the base of the spire, blinking in the cold light. Daniel was gone, but a piece of him remained. She felt it in the silence. In the calm. Brock helped her up. Is it over? Mara smiled faintly. No. But it's beginning again. The right way. 3 weeks later. Outpost Thorn had become a beacon, literally. Signals from the spire helped reactivate dormant satellites. Survivors from as far as New Zealand, Argentina, and deep Russian silos responded. The infected no longer attacked, at least not those closest to the signal zones. Those outside? Still dangerous. Still mindless. Not all could be reached. But the war had changed. Inside the outpost, Mara stood before a transmission array, broadcasting a message into the world. To those still out there, this is Mara Kell, from Thorn. We found something. The infection was never meant to end us. Only test us. If you hear this, follow the light. There's a path forward. And we're waiting. Behind her, the spire pulsed softly. Not a weapon. Not a grave. But a signal tower for the future. The last light was no longer the end. It was the first dawn. White heavy checkmark complete, all 8 parts of The Last Light. 30 survivors faced the unknown in the most isolated zone on Earth.